Hello and welcome to the first Quo-Cast video episode for 2023. What I would do in this first one is tell you about the milestones happening in the Quo universe this year. So anniversaries of albums and other significant events. Although, as you may see, some of these events might not be very significant. Who knows? So let's start with the obvious one. I don't actually own a copy, but 55 years ago, a band called The Status Quo released the album Picturesque Matchstickable Messages from the Status Quo. This album is obviously in their psychedelic period, and it has quite a striking cover, actually, which for years, in the early days of the internet, finding out this album existed, I thought they were standing on a bridge or something. Turns out they're on a pile of matchboxes. Picturesque, pictures of matchstick men, obviously, marketing gold, even all this time later. Do let me know in the comments below what you think of this album, because obviously it has that huge hit single on it, plus Ice in the Sun, and the follow-up to Pictures, Black Veils of Melancholy, which I like. Yeah, I like it. Technicolor Dreams is a great track as well. This psychedelic period obviously would last for another album. Next year, we get to talk about Spare Parts. 2023 also sees the 50th anniversary of the Hello album, the first Status Quo LP to reach #1 in the charts. This, again, is a very striking cover. We have the band in silhouette, Status Quo at the top, with just Hello written at the bottom. Unfortunately, the CD version that I've got of this album doesn't really show up very well. You really have to have it in vinyl edition in order to kind of appreciate just how striking and interesting it is. So what tracks have we got on here? Well, this is the album which makes up a lot of the sets that you see down the years. We've got the likes of Roll Over, Lay Down, Claudie, which was in the set for a little while, plus it's been played on Francis Rossi tours and as part of the acoustic. A Reason for Living was part of the acoustic. Blue-Eyed Lady, resurrected on the Frantic Four tour. Not the first time we're going to be mentioning that. Caroline, obviously, opener of many a live gig. Softer Ride, one of the highlights in my opinion. And It's Better Now, again, resurrected for acoustic, plus 4,500 times. No idea. Never heard that track before, have no idea what it means. It says it's 9 minutes long. Couldn't possibly get any longer than that. No, 4,500 times, amazing track. Developed much more live, though, later on, isn't it? But Hello, #1 album, still sounds great. I do like A Reason for Living. The band Big Fat Mama played that at the convention, and it just sounds good. It's a great solo, a nice little rhythm, and quite a meaningful lyric as well. What do you think of the Hello album? Do let me know in the comments below. So we go from one of the most popular albums in the Status Quo canon to one which is kind of indifferent, I guess. This one is very chalk and cheese. You're either a fan or you're not. You love it or you hate it. It's very disco. This one has a very unique sound, and I'm hoping to talk to Pip Williams at some point about how they came to this sound. According to Wikipedia, they used something called an oral exciter. I need to look up what that means, and whatever it means, I think there is a particular sound on this album that must be due to that. It's very produced, but then they're using a lot of extra elements. aren't they? They've got backing singers. You've got a horn section. There's just a little bit more trickery going on than before. Striking image on the front once again. Quo and their album covers in the 70s. Pretty much, you look over and you see the logo. You're like, it's a Status Quo album. If you can't stand the heat. I remember getting this for the first time and thinking that this was broken, but this is actually part of the design. Marvelous. A record deck. Not quite sure what this is supposed to symbolize. Maybe this is heat. I'm not sure. So, yeah, image of Quo on the back, Quo live, as it were. A couple of albums away from the live album, but very much in that, considering this is quite produced, this image almost doesn't fit, but we've got some great tracks on here. This is one of my favorite albums. Again and Again, which was a single. I'm Giving Up My Worrying, Gonna Teach You to Love Me, Someone Show Me Home, bit of country. Long-Legged Linda, which was a Bowen composition. He performed it back in the early 70s. It's really given life on this album. Oh What a Night, which is kind of a proto for Whatever You Want. Accident Prone, I love it. I mean, it's great lyrics, an excellent production that is very disco, and it's brilliant. I mean, there's a reason why when I appeared on the radio asking Quo questions and they said you can have any song in the Quo catalogue, any song, I was like, play Accident Prone, because more people should hear it. And it's a shame, actually, that it didn't do better in the charts. In fact, it was the only single in the 1970s to stall outside of the top 30. It got to number 36, probably because of what Rockin' All Over the World. I'm saying it here. Stones, which is a Lancaster composition, one of his best vocal performances, I think, even if it's not the strongest song. Let Me Fly, typical kind of Rossi Frost shuffly type thing. Like a Good Girl, not quite sure what they're saying at the beginning, but who cares at this point? It's a great kind of rock and roll number with a very catchy chorus as well, which makes me think they tried to put it into the live set at some point, because I've heard a rehearsal footage from the early 80s where they're performing this song. Maybe it's just one that came to mind, but this is turning 45 years old this year. This is, as I say, Status Quo, If You Can't Stand the Heat. What do you think of this album? Let me know in the comments below. The album turning 40 this year in the Status Quo catalogue is Back to Back. Released in 1983, this is, again, another Marmite album. It's the last album to have Alan Lancaster on, until the reunion live albums, obviously. But I think, aside from the production, there's actually some okay songs on here. We've got A Mess of Blues, Old Rag Blues, a Lancaster composition. Which version do you prefer? Do let me know in the comments below. Can't Be Done, Too Close to the Ground, No Contract. Win or Lose, Margarita Time. Your Kind of Love, Stay the Night. Going Downtown Tonight, which is different from the single version. I prefer the single version, actually. Slightly higher key, great guitar solo. This album kind of just plods along a bit, doesn't it? But I do like the visual imagery, although for a long time I thought these were chocolate bars rather than trucks. But if you look at the videos around this time, there's very much this. It's kind of touring and on the road stuff. And then the kind of mirror Top of the Pop style thing on the back with the band live. That is Back to Back, turning 40 this year. What do you think of this album? Let me know in the comments below. So the second album recorded by the new lineup of Rossi, Parfit, Bowen, Rhino, Edwards and Chef Rich Ain't Complaining turns 35 this year. I like this album. I know lots of people don't. It's very different from previous. They're trying to fit into the mold of the times, and somewhat successful, somewhat unsuccessful at times. When I listen through this album, I do get kind of etches of other bands. That there are tracks on here where I think that's very REO Speedwagon, or that's very Phil Collins. Obviously, one of the singles on here, Ain't Complaining, great beginning, and Pip Williams does a great job with the production, in my opinion, even if some of it has dated. Every Time I Think of You, which Rhino said in an interview with me that he felt it was unfinished. I don't think so. I really like the track. I think it works. Be nice to hear him kind of revisit it one day and see what he would do to it to kind of make it better in some way in his mind. One for the Money. Looking Forward in Reverse. That's all I'm saying about that one. Another Shipwreck, which an Andy Bowen composition that is really zhuzhed up for this album. This track is one of my favorites of all time, and it needed to be in an 80s movie. It wasn't. The filmmakers missed out. So, don't mind if I do. Great track. I Know You're Leaving. Very REO Speedwagon, isn't it? That sort of thing. But when I first heard this album, that track hit me right there. Cross That Bridge, a John David composition. Cream of the Crop. Single contender, but not particularly easy to sing, was it, Francis? The Loving Game, often known as one of the worst songs they ever recorded. Who Gets the Love, which was a single. Power Ballad in 1988. Why not? And Darby Kelly's Jig gets a run in Burning Bridges. And then finishing off with Magic, which is very 1980s. And also very 1980s, this cover. So we've got a picture of the band on the front with these, were they Charvel guitars that they were using, or certainly promoting at this moment in time, and then an image on the back. I mean, this is very removed from what they were doing in even a couple of years, 2 or 3 years prior. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to go more kind of mainstream, more pop at this point. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally love it. I have to be in the right mood for it, though. Ain't Complaining. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So last year saw the 20th anniversary of Heavy Traffic, and around that time they recorded a bunch of covers for an album that was supposed to come out about a month after the aforementioned one. And Heavy Traffic was so successful that they delayed it a year. So with that in mind, it's the 20th anniversary this year of Riffs, which I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's an album of covers. This is their third one. It has some fans, people who like hearing them do songs like I Fought the Law and Born to be Wild, Taking Care of Business. But my thoughts on this album in particular is it's not quite as inventive as the first one. It's not as kind of run-of-the-mill as the second one, but I don't know. I don't know what to say about this one. This is turning 20 this year. This is Riffs. What else can I say? Let me know in the comments below what you think of this album. So let's talk about an anniversary which is somewhat odd, isn't it? It's an odd thing. So let's talk about Bula Quo. Let's talk about Bula Quo, shall we? This is the soundtrack to this. This movie actually happened. This is a real thing. If you're hearing about it for the first time, is it worth picking up? Well, it's a laugh. It's a laugh. It has some nice action sequences in it. It's not going to win the best movie of all time. It's just a bit of fun. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people kind of took this out and just judged the album. The album itself is actually pretty good. There's some kind of reworkings of older songs on there, which some people aren't fans of, but some of the newer compositions on here, such as Looking Out for Caroline, Go, 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 Run and Hide, Running Inside My Head, Mystery Island, All That Money, Never Leave a Friend Behind, Fiji Time, and of course the title song, Bula Quo, which I thought was great. The way that they have that beginning and then they kind of repeat it at the end. And it's a catchy little number that I remember watching just before Eurovision when they appeared on the National Lottery and thinking, this is exactly the lead-in that I want. But the album itself is marginal, innit? Like it's one of those things. It's like all Quo material. You either love it or you hate it. Do you love this album? Do you like this movie? I mean, this is one of those things, like I said earlier about the anniversary thing. This is like a significant event. Quo release a movie. To some people, it isn't significant. But yeah, what do you think of Bula Quo in general? Let me know in the comments below. So that's celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Also reaching that milestone is obviously the Frantic Four reunion tour. And I think I can say to most fans, this was a significant event. This was something nobody ever thought would happen. The Frantic Four back together again, playing the songs that made them famous in the first place and chucking in a couple of favorites from the albums that had never been played live before. To hear Blue-Eyed Lady, which it surprises me even now that no one had ever thought to do that. Marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. The full Railroad with Bob Young coming on to play harmonica. Shivers down my spine as I'm sat there at the Hammersmith Apollo watching the Frantic Four, which I never thought I would get the chance to because I'm of an age where the Frantic Four had been long gone. They split up like 8 years before I was born. So to see them on stage playing a lot of Alan-focused songs, things like Backwater, Just Take Me, Is There a Better Way? I mean, every song in here is killer, isn't it? To hear Oh Baby for the first time. My only kind of thing is that the year following this, in 2014, when they went on tour again, they did a slightly longer version of 4,500 Times. The one that's included in this live thing that they did on that tour is closer to the one that the current band were using because of the way that it segs into Rain. But yeah, this is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Did you see the Frantic Four live? Where did you see them? I have this Blu-ray to remember. I also bought the digital album of the gig I went to. They should have filmed Hammersmith. They should have done that because Hammersmith was such a sound. What a crowd at Hammersmith. So yeah, 10th anniversary of the Frantic Four reunion tour, number one, back to square one, back to SQ1. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So that is all of the things, to my knowledge anyway, celebrating milestones this year. If I've missed anything, do let me know in the comments below. And if you're a guest on the podcast this year, I might just ask you about some of these things. So be ready with an answer. That's about it, really. Thank you very much for watching. Please do rate, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see some more Quo-related videos of this type.